Welcome to day 2 of the October Horror Movie Challenge. Today's isn't necessarily horror per se, but does take place around Halloween. It is the October 30th film, which I usually actually tend to watch on October 30th, but this year I decided just to do it the day before I start watching a bunch of Halloween-oriented films, so it kind of ties in with it. The Crow. First saw this when I was a little kid as well. Back then, I liked it, but it really wasn't until I was a teenager that I really loved it. As a kid, it was just another superhero film because, there was a shit ton of them back then, The Shadow, The Phantom, Rocketeer, etc. This here did a lot of trailblazing, honestly, because if you look at like Batman 89, which a lot of those films are responses to, this here took a lot of that, but gave it that industrial feel, a vibe that went on to carry through with films like Underworld, The Matrix, even the first couple X-Men films. So in a way, indie comic The Crow sort of influenced major Marvel comic X-Men, which, without X-Men, Spider-Man came along and was the next step. After that, Iron Man and the MCU was the next step. So this film has a huge mark. I should also mention Blade. Obviously, Blade has a lot of post-Crow sensibilities to it. I'm saying that those films wouldn't exist without this, but this is definitely a stepping stone to get to those. Brandon Lee fucking could have gone on to do amazing things afterwards. The Crow costume, I just remember, so many people in high school wore it. Back in my high school days, that's when like emo was getting really big. So, emo goth icon was Eric Draven. This is probably one of my top 5 most quoted films of all time. I quote this, I don't want to say daily, but damn near close to it. The sequels, not so much. I've seen them a couple of times. It's a write-off. A lot of people are highly against a remake of this. I'm not anti-remake, as long as, there's heart involved in the filmmaking process. I wish there were a lot more, horror superhero films. As I said yesterday, Venom 2 came out, which as close as we have at the moment. There are films like Hellboy, of course, but this here is the best of all of them. It is one of my favorite superhero comic book films of all time. Honestly, probably one of my most watched. I do probably watch this yearly, and with great reason. Like, it oozes style, has an amazing soundtrack. The cast runs with all of their roles. There's not enough things you can say about this. This is a film that should be celebrated. This is a film that is iconic. And, if a person who is not a horror fan, but does enjoy, DC, Marvel, and you're trying to get them to watch something this, Halloween season, obviously if you're watching this, you've probably already seen it. But, if you do have somebody who you're trying to gateway into horror, this is a perfect film to do it with. And since today is Devil's Night, or technically today isn't, but today's choices, I guess, fire it up and watch it yourself and come back tomorrow and we will be enjoying a lot more Halloween films.